Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Constantine Calanteris, and I'm a digital marketing specialist here at OSAT. Welcome to the second continuing professional development session at this year's virtual conference, How to Use Lean Thinking to Boost Resilience in Your Organization, presented by Erica and Celia Espinoza of Relamco. Relamco is also an OSAT 360 Elite partner, and they're providing the training today. Before we get started, I just want to cover a couple of things about the platform. Any questions or comments can be sent using the chat feature in the Hoover platform, both on the mobile and desktop apps. This session will run for an hour in length with a 50-minute Q&A following the presentation. As always, we will do our best to get to all the questions, and for those that we don't get to, keep feeding them into the chat and we'll get to them at some point after the presentation. CPD certificates will be emailed to all attendees by the end of next week. These are auto-generated using your registration details. So if there's an error in spelling or something went wrong in the auto-generation, just kindly respond to the email. We'll make the updates. Before we begin, let me introduce our speakers. Erica Espinoza has over 15 years of experience working in the manufacturing, education, and healthcare sectors. As a health planner, she has many years of experience preparing health profiles, needs assessments, conducting community engagement, facilitating workshops, and designing and managing projects across various programs. As a lean trainer, she has led 5S in visual management training and implementation, coached and mentored process owners through their A3 projects, and conducted lean assessments to determine organizational readiness. As a community facilitator, she has extensive experience working on impact assessments and facilitating engagement sessions with First Nations communities in Northern Ontario. Erica is a certified lean supply management black belt, lean healthcare black belt, and advanced alternative dispute resolution. Celia Espinoza has over 10 years of combined experience in process improvement, management consulting, business analysis, training, coaching, and project management. As a lean coach, she has assisted dozens of businesses in becoming customer value driven by empowering people, re-energizing business processes, and delivering positive business results. As a lean practitioner, she has a proven track record of success in identifying areas for improvement and developing initiatives that improve organizational and system preference for clients in the healthcare environment. She is certified in Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and holds a master's in healthcare administration and a Master of Business Administration degree. And with that, I'm running short on breath here, so I'm going to pass it off to Erica and Celia and let you two take it from here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And yes, welcome to Relamco's How to Use Lean Thinking to Boost Resiliency in Your Organization. So let's get started.
Yeah, and welcome everyone. And also bienvenidos a todos los participantes de habla hispana. I know that there are some of them. Okay, welcome.
Okay, so I'm sure these pictures clearly explain what our organizations have actually been experiencing in the last 20 months, almost 2 years. You know, not so long ago, 5-year business plans were a very popular thing. Long-term planning, objectives, vertical structures, and hierarchies, and you know the drill. I'm very certain many of you have actually worked under those structures. But COVID-19 has changed this significantly. Today, we have to kind of almost take a step back to reflect on the bigger picture, where we're operating now in a world that's very different, and how do we adapt to it? And how can we adapt to it? In order to understand our current trends, we need to be able to, in order to be able to prepare for our future, we need to understand what those trends are. So let's look at some of those current trends. So if we look at technological transformation, for example, if we look at international patents, applications that have been filed via the World Intellectual Property Organization's Patent Corporation Treaty, which is widely used for measuring innovation and innovation activity, grew about 4% in 2020, reaching about a little bit over 275,000 applications, which has been the highest number ever, despite there being an estimated drop in global GPD of 3.5%. as seen in the picture on your right of the screen, China's had the highest number of international patent applications during this time frame. So if we look at technological transformation and what can we learn from it in order to prepare for the future, we have to consider how do we examine consumers and products, and what are the processes and business. If we go to our next trend, if we examine the expectations of the economy, brands are having been able to enhance people's lives, and it's actually, brands have actually outperformed, but about 120%. Yet only about 20% of those brands are perceived to add any significant value to people's lives. And 73% of people don't actually even care if the brands they currently are using, disappear from those lives. So with these numbers in mind, what we need to look at as we're trying to understand this particular trend and how we can go forward and how to prepare going forward, we need to look at how the power of fast information, and we need to look at how do we do brand engagement so that we can change the 73% of people not caring about brands to a percentage that's more favorable to us. If we look at data explosion, big data analytics market has reached over $103 billion, will reach about $103 million by 2023. And in 2020, about every person has generated about 1.7 megawatts in just a second. 45% of businesses worldwide are running at least one big data world cloud in the clouds. 95% of businesses cite a need to manage unstructured data as it's been one of the problems for their business. And social media accounts have completely exploded during this time frame. And people are actually spending more time on social media than they have in the past. So when we consider about data explosion, we have to look at what is the big impact of data and what is also some of the consumer or business concerns. Another trend that we also need to look at is transparency, values, and ethics. In the 2019 pandemic, more than 1.9 million lives have been lost. And also you have lives lost and joblessness, which has been kind of the equivalent to the Great Depression. And it has accelerated a lot of the erosion of trust around the world. And this is evident in a significant drop in trust in the two largest economies, the US and China. So moving forward, we need to consider the impact of people's low tolerance to meaning the loss of trust and the ethical consumerism. If we look at, what is the generational impact of COVID-19 on millennials, those born between 1980 and 1995, and who will be actually turning 40 this year, and I'm certain many of you are within that age group, who actually also represent more than half of our workforce. More than half of millennials, say they have experienced financial insecurity due to COVID-19. Millennials have also worked from home, are facing many rising expenses on groceries and cost of living due to COVID-19. And to make matters worse for millennials, those who are working from home also feel less connected to their employers and are more there's more job-related stresses compared to other generations. So when we are trying to understand those current and future consumers, we need to understand millennials because they are those current and future consumers, and also our current and future employees. So how do we prepare going forward? In order to be able to survive and strive, our organizations are now required to be able to identify what is the need. Our world is changing at an ever fast pace. Businesses more than ever than any other social institution have to be able to adapt and to become, because if you don't adapt, you actually become irrelevant and cease to exist. I don't know how many of you know the case of Netflix versus Blockbuster. At one time, Blockbuster was actually able to dominate, especially during the 1990s and early 2000s. And currently, right now, I think there's only like one Blockbuster store in Oregon. what happened to them? They weren't able to adapt and also understand the changing consumer need, something that Netflix was able to do as a very young company. And now they dominate when it comes to watching movies. So these are one of the things that you actually need to consider. The second thing you need to consider is the strategy. What are the business strategies you have to consider of like where to play, and how to win? How can organizations build the requisites for flexibility and agility to keep up with changing strategies? The third thing that we need to look at is what is our starting point? It's often the hardest question. Where do you, as a business owner or departmental manager, where do you start? So many priorities compete for immediate attention. Another thing to think about in terms of our goals. What is, we need to kind of rediscover the compelling approach to building the capabilities of our business need in order to survive and even thrive during these times. That might actually help you or your boss, you be able to achieve all the goals that you've set forward. Now, as we move forward to the changes, these are the kind of considerations that you kind of need to be able to have and be able to adapt as you move onward. So how does lean thinking link to organization resiliency? Lean focuses on business processes. Lean was first introduced in the manufacturing and production industries in Japan after World War II. It has now actually been adopted by organizations all over the world and has been applied in a wide variety of business disciplines. Lean thinking is a systemic method for being able to identify and eliminate waste in any process. And why do we focus on processes? We focus on processes because they are like the arteries of our organization. If information or product fails to flow in a continuous manner with customers' requirements in mind, then will the customers be 100% satisfied with the organization outputs or how it operates? Absolutely not. So we really need to look at what are those processes and be able to understand those processes, because that really is what gives us an input into what is our customer thinking. Lean thinking is also the belief that there's a simpler and better way, an easier way to be able to complete your work. Lean, as modeled on the Toyota way, is centered around two core values, its pillars, and its 5 principles. So first, we'll look at what are those 2 pillars. So we have respect for people. This particular pillar emphasizes the importance of respect at every level of the company. And what does this mean? This means that, respect for people includes respecting others, making every effort to be able to actually understand each other and take responsibility and do your best to build mutual trust. We also have teamwork, being able to stimulate personal and professional growth, being able to share the opportunities of development and maximizing individual and team performance. When we look at the pillar for continuous improvement, this is considered one pillar of lean thinking, which focuses on identifying those opportunities to change work for the better. And in continuous improvement, it includes terms of the challenge, which is looking at forming a long-term vision and meeting those challenges with courage and creativity to be able to realize those dreams and those goals. We're looking then at Kaizens, which is improving your business operations continuously and always striving for innovation and evolution. Then we're looking at Genchi Gubutsu, which is going to the source, to find the facts, to make corrective decisions and being able to build consensus and achieve goals. Now, these 2 pillars, as I mentioned before, are also complemented by the 5 principles of lean. So if your company is facing, various problems for an extended period of time and does not receive sufficient income for the efforts made, then it's worth really thinking about introducing lean thinking into that enterprise, into that business organization or department. Lean thinking is capable of not only changing the situation, but also correcting it and changing the way your business able to go forward. So simply introducing lean thinking in enterprise will actually also allow you to be able to spend less time on manufacturing, be able to reduce any rejects, and be able to actually increase productivity. And the 5 principles of lean, as defined by Womack and Jones, are to be able to understand value, to be able to map the value stream, to be able to establish flow, employ a pull approach, seek perfection through, and for each one series of slides. So the first principle of lean, understanding value, is really stresses is understanding the product or service value through the eyes of the customer. So the amount of customers willing to pay for the product, service is directly related to how much value they put on that product. So understanding that value is the first step towards effective pricing of the product and also lean management. So who is your end customer? Typically, that end customer is the final customer of our work, are those who will receive our product. A quick way to be able to test and reflect on your work if you're actually producing something that your customer value is, how will you know if the customer values it is, would the customer complain if you stop producing that item, if you stop allowing for that feature or stop supporting that particular feature? If the answer is yes, then that item has value to your customer. For lean to work, you must also define what adds that value. For something to add value, 3 things must actually happen. Those value-added activities are items that the customer wants and is willing to pay for, are activities that transform the product from raw materials into finished goods, and that is done right the first time. It sounds simple, but in actual fact, when we look at the activities that are produced in most of our businesses, only about 3 to 5% of those activities are actually of value to our customer. So how about non-value added or necessary or essential? These activities are things that are consumed, so are resources that don't directly contribute to the product or service. And these are activities that are currently required. And these could be activities that are required due to legislation, activities that are required due to audits or due to business policies or due to any kind of risk or safety requirements. They are business non-value activities, and typically businesses or processes contain about 10 to 50% of this activity within their process. So how does these two, differ from non-value added, or as what otherwise known as waste? So waste actually is something that, non-value added are something that actually consumes a lot of our resources, but don't directly contribute to the product or service. It's something that can actually be eliminated without deteriorating our product or our service functionality. And typically about 85% of organizations spend their time actually in this area, in this particular process or activity. So in other words, let's say if, a manufacturing process is a 10-step process, about 8 to 9 of those steps can actually have no direct benefit, to your customer or consumer. So what are some examples of value add, non-value added, and essential non-value added? So these are some examples. If you have some value added activities, some examples here that we have, like machining, drilling, assembling, in terms of painting or spreading or cutting. These are items that we want to be able to maximize because these are items that have transformed the product. If you look at non-value added activities, those are things that are waste. We actually want to be able to eliminate, because we already know that these items, eliminate, don't have any impact or have no value to our customer. And if we look at necessary non-value added activities, these are things we actually want to minimize. We want to be able to minimize the time required to actually complete these items. Now we have a particular exercise, and I'm going to go and read through each one and just give you a little bit of time to reflect upon your answer before we provide it. So, for example, we want to say, like, is a nurse, taking an assessment of a patient before surgical operation? Would this be considered a value add, a non-value add, or a necessary non-value added activity? A nurse taking assessment of a patient before surgical operation. This, in fact, would actually be considered a value added activity because it has value from the perspective of the customer. Let's look at the next one. If we have, say, medication given early to suit a staff schedule and equipment use, would this be a value add, non-value add, or non-value or necessary non-value added activity? This actually would be a non-value added activity. So this is actually be in terms of a waste, because it's extra processing. If we're looking for waiting for results or records or information, this will actually be also non-value activity. It's the waiting, so it's waste. If we're looking at missing information on employees' files, this again would be a non-value added activity. Let's say you're moving office supplies, to the second floor. Would this have value to your customer? No, this again will be a non-value added activity. What about applying a cast to broken limbs? Would this be value add, non-value add, or necessary non-value added activity? This would be a value add, because it's value add from the perspective of your customer. What about clients hand sanitizing prior to entering the mechanical shop? This actually would be a necessary non-value added activity, so because this is a business regulation. If we're looking at ER staff at ambulance entrances in anticipation of emergency arrival, this would be a non-value add activity, because not just in terms of the waiting by the ER staff, but also the ER staff can actually be spent looking for other, providing services to other clients. Say we have the same activities being performed in a different way by different people. This will also be a non-value added activity. What about searching for equipment in a mechanical shop? This will also be a non-value activity, because you're searching. What about invoicing, waiting to be worked on? This will also be non-value added activities. We use these kind of exercises when we do our trainings in order to be able to understand what are those value added activities, what are those non-value added activities, and what are those necessary or business non-value added activities or requirements. So let's move on to the next principle. So the next principle is to be able to map the value stream. The value stream is a visual depiction of those key steps and data related related to improve and optimize specific processes that require multiple steps or handoffs. Toyota pioneered the technique of value stream mapping, which allow businesses and managers and strategists to be able to identify parts of the value stream where waste occurs and optimize those areas in the value stream in order to be able to reduce those wastes. A value stream is an end-to-end collection of processes that create value for the customer. And a value stream includes all of those activities required to transform customer requests into goods or service. It includes all of those steps that are value added and non-value added. And it starts with, raw materials or initial information and ends with the end customer or end user or consumer. If we go to, in terms of what moves within a value stream. In manufacturing, it's material that flows. In design and service, is that information. And when we look at, in terms of human services, it's actual people. If we look at the third principle, which is how do we establish flow? Flow is looking at, is referring to the link of all the activities and processes into looking all the activities and processes into the most efficient combination to maximizing those value added contents while minimizing waste, where there is no waiting, where there are no interruptions or delays in the value stream. And we establish flow by making sure that the products or service are able to flow continuously and ensure that the downstream operations have only what is needed, just when it's needed, in the exact amount that is needed. What does established flow look like? The picture that we have here in this particular slide is kind of like an ideal state where we have established flow and our processes are all linked together and there's no inventory in between them, and the work is able to pass quickly from one process to another where there's no interruption in that particular flow. What are some barriers to flow? In order to understand, we need to identify those issues that prevent one piece flow to work, or that potentially cause interruptions, such as you can have physical layout, you can have in terms of batching, you can have equipment downtime, you can have rework or bottlenecks, you can have handoffs, too many handoffs sometimes occurring in the process. You can sometimes also have staff inaccessibility due to excessive multitasking or sharing resources that might result in wait time, or heavy travel, or vacancies or interruptions, as well as long setups or changeover time. Once we are able to eliminate these steps in the workflow that causes interruptions or backlog, it actually allows us to be able to create value creating steps. Our next principle is being able to employ a pull approach. A pull approach allows customer to tell you what they want before we begin the delivery of the service. So nothing is created unless the customer asks for it. Basically, it's supply based upon demand. Done correctly, this allows you to reduce overheads and optimize storage costs, and eliminate those costs associated with having to be able to maintain or keep resources that often end up being wasted due to expiration dates. The opposite of pull is push. So push is what triggers the movement, whether the next stage is ready or not. Push production, is make to stock, and is based on demand forecast. So think of pull as just in time, and think of push as just in case. An example of this is, say, Apple. Apple doesn't really overstock their shops or their retail partners. They wait to really see if there's a demand for more. And if it does increases, then they produce more. This way, the company is able to optimize its resources and achieve a high cost efficiency and quality. Example of healthcare of a push and pull. Say a push would be, say, patients, are scheduled in an operating room based upon a fixed schedule of specialization or physician availability. So the work is actually only starts really before the patient, requested the procedure, compared to pull, where patients are individually scheduled in operating room based upon actual demand. Physicians are pulled in based upon their specialization, being able to address those patient needs. And that work or schedule is only really starts when the patient actually requests it. What about in terms of our next and final principle, which is to be able to pursue, continuous improvement? The goal is to seek perfection, which we know is unattainable, but it's the pursuit of it is really what we're trying to achieve. The process of implementing, the 5 principles, it shouldn't be mechanical in nature. Rather, is to be driven by a spirit of continuous analysis, innovation, and adaptability. When lean improvement is completed, it's really essential to ensure that success stays on track, that teams learn to see waste within processes, that teams are able to target waste for elimination, that teams are able to create and implement thoughtful, purposeful changes and result in the elimination of waste and resulting in those measurable process improvements. And teams are able to repeat those in 3 steps, in a cycle. So they're continuously perfecting, they're continuously learning and adapting and changing and seeking a better outcome. So when we look at lean thinking and organization resiliency, we have to look at what is the vision and purpose. Lean starts with being able to examine your purpose, what you need to do to be able to satisfy your customer. And this allows us to look at what is the direction and connection through value to our customer. When we look at in terms of culture, a lean culture entails a sustained shift in behavior, patterns, and values based on trust and respect. And here, what we're really looking at is being able to have innovation. Culture is about being able to be ready for change, be able to have a can-do culture primed to adapt. Lean, when we look at people, lean empowers people to take ownership, of their own workplace problems and be able to solve them. So what we actually are looking at is that people feel more in control and open to change versus, having to protect our turf. When we look at processes, lean being able to provide the tools to redesign your processes to fit for the process and eliminating those non-value added activities. What we're really looking at is to be able to streamline transparent processes, which are easier to change. When we look at in terms of fitness, it takes discipline to implement lean, but success creates momentum to be able to sustain it. What we're also looking at is sustaining those efforts and creating that fitness to perform when it actually matters. Now we weren't sure we were going to be able to fit this video. The video takes about a little bit over 6 minutes, almost 6 minutes, 21 seconds. I believe Constantine has provided that video in your chat box. If you want to have your chat box, it's a very good lean video that's able to actually show you, it's called Meals Per Hour. And what it shows you is how do we get meals to people in a faster and more quality way. So do we want to take a bit of a break and then everyone regroup after those 6 minutes?
I love to work, but I also like to put smiles on people's faces. If there's a child out there that's in need, I need to help this person out.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
When we down to our last box and you have like 7 families standing on the line and you just have that one box and you don't know what exactly to do, that kills me.
George is a great leader. He knows what he's doing, but they didn't really have a system kind of set up. Because if you have a good system, I think the work takes care of itself.
We call TPS the Toyota Production System. The summation of many, many small, simple, cheap improvements can have a very big impact.
People are starting to understand that these basic principles of the Toyota Production System apply to any kind of process. It doesn't have to be a manufacturing process.
We have our way of doing it, but if there's a faster way for us to go out and give food out to people faster, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
What about a different box size so that we're not shipping so much air?
If we could go to a smaller box, we would have the benefit of being able to put more meals on the truck to serve more people.
The side benefit being it's not so difficult to handle. The thing that struck me was how difficult it was for the volunteers that were there to pack that box. I mean, they were walking long distances, they were carrying heavy weight.
It was kind of disarray, just the table in the middle. Everybody was scrambling to get stuff open. And I'm like, this is not really too productive.
So by putting everybody on one side of the line and having the material come from the opposite, we think we're going to get a smoother flow.
Yeah. Let's go for it now. I don't care if I leave work late. I don't care.
You know, I don't want you to have to walk 15 feet to go get those 2 cans of corn. I want those cans of corn to be readily available to you in the right quantity at the right place at the right time so that you can pack it in the box. Wow, this looks a lot different, doesn't it? That's cool, yeah. Does anybody remember how long it was taking us to pack one box when we first started?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? That's exactly right. It was around 3 minutes.
3 minutes per box.
What do you think we were packing one box? How long and how many seconds today? About 11 seconds.
Kaizen is a Japanese word for continuous improvement. And what this philosophy means is we always want to strive step by step to make a process better. Outside Toyota, problem can sometimes have a negative connotation, like a bad thing. I find that in many cases it's better to say we have something that we can improve.
Sweet.
Much faster, way faster.
Yeah?
Yes. Much faster.
Very good. We've got plenty of homework.
Yeah, plenty of homework. The list is a lot shorter than it was when we started.
How long did you guys wait?
We waited for like about a minute.
That's it?
Yeah,
That's nothing.
I know.
Unfortunately, we had Sandy, but there'll be other cases where this needs to be done, and hopefully you've learned some of the basic principles so you can set something up from the beginning.
One thing I did learn from these guys is how to structure things one by one, you know, not just take it as a whole thing and just be like, it's a mess, but instead I can take step by step by step.
Okay, and I think probably everybody has the opportunity to see the video. We try to, as much as possible, when we provide our trainings, to include these small videos that we find, that are a little bit of case studies of how lean has been applied not only in manufacturing, sometimes education, sometimes nonprofits, sometimes in healthcare. So you can really see the full impact of the application of lean, what impact, the positive impact it can actually have to not just that organization, but to organizations overall. Celia, I don't know if you want to add anything else. Okay, so we'll then continue on. So in summary, when experiencing, exponential or organizational change that's accelerating, surviving and thriving in this new reality requires both individual and organizational resiliency. Resilient organizations are those that provide clarity and vision and purpose, where there's a culture that's actually founded on trust and respect, where people are valued and empowered, and where processes and systems are fit for purpose and flexibility. And I hope, the meals per hour video kind of is able to show and reflect those components. The philosophy of lean, embodies, all of these things, and provides a very clear approach and roadmap to be able to actually achieve and maintain the organization resiliency needed, to thrive in a changing world. So one of the things we also wanted to include in this slide is kind of like some of our competitive advantage, some of the things that we also do here in Orlanco. We provide, as Celia had mentioned, both of us do speak Spanish, and we actually do provide both all our courses, be it online or in person, in English and Spanish. And what also separates us from others is that we, unlike other organizations, have our lean training has been certified and also has professional development credit. We here have a list of our different trainings that we offer. Right now, we just started our lean project management. It started yesterday, and it will continue on for the next 3 weeks. And we'll finish about December 7th. But these are our additional courses. We have our lean thinking course, which is about a 1 hour long self-paced course. We also provide lean white, yellow, green belt in healthcare as well. And we also have Six Sigma, yellow and green, as well as the manufacturing, if you are interested in being able to take those courses. 5S management, lean leader, lean practitioner, and lean project management. So I hope you enjoyed this, portion of your of this session. We wanted to be able to introduce a little bit of what are the things you need to consider as we're moving in terms of trends, as we're moving forward, how lean can kind of help you be able to prepare and be able to take those considerations and be able to actually move it forward so you can make some improvements and actually can make changes and be more resilient and be able to thrive in these changing environments. And I believe that is it from my end. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Erica. Celia, sorry, I think I might have turned off your camera at some point during the presentation.
No, it's okay.
I hope I didn't mix you up.
No. It's okay.
Okay, perfect. Everybody, now is the time to ask any questions in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions, any comments, either about today's topic or about something else. Now is the time to ask.
So while waiting for the comments or any questions, just to let you know that Relamco actually, we have 3 main streams. We work in the engineering part, engineering section of the business, but also continuous improvement and the training, Lean Six Sigma training. All of our trainings actually require the participants to work on a specific project. So it's like the return on investment, for the businesses. They have to prove and how they apply the concepts that they learn during the classes, how they apply those concepts into a project for their organizations or the businesses where they're actually working on. So it's a very interactive, we have very interactive trainings. We use videos, we use case studies, and also the participants, we were actually lucky to have many OSET members, that are participating in our trainings. So they are from all over the places, Epson and Amazon. We have several participants from Amazon that actually they are working on projects, and we're very happy, and actually they were very successful with the projects too. In a period of 1 month, actually they show that the results from the projects.
We got one question in here from Flavio. The question is, any thoughts regarding the lean applied to the supply chain and the current shortages?
It's been, I know it's been something that a lot of people have thought about, because, I think prior to COVID, that whole pull and push system really worked well, because, in the pull system, you are really only getting those items, based upon demand. And now, because of COVID, it has really impacted. I know we've been having, in terms of some discussions with people who've participated in our course, the impact that it's been having, because, you're now having to really think about it differently, because it's resulted in people having to have some negotiations with some of their suppliers to be actually be able to not just manufacture, but sometimes be able to have some inventory, because we thought inventory differently in the past. So some of these companies don't have now the space for that inventory, because previously they didn't have a lot of inventory. So now they had to have those considerations. They have now had to look at really understand, not just in terms of forecasting, but really understand the impact that that COVID has had when it comes to forecasting. When it comes to, there are certain materials that you're going to be in short supply of. So how do you make those considerations? Like right now, we have a where I live, they're doing a lot of homes, and the organization that's selling these homes is having a very difficult time to be able to price them if you want to buy one, for the very simple reason that they're saying, if we price the home right now, that might not be the price at the end, because we are those materials that we need, might not actually come a few months down the road. So it's really impacting those components. So we've had to rethink, and a lot of those organizations have had to actually adopt both a pull and push approach, not just a pull approach, in order to be able to have those items that they required going forward. So it has had a big impact, and there's been a lot of discussions in various organizations, in various different forums, of how do we still apply the core values of lean, of eliminating the waste, but also the core value of lean of understanding the customer, and also understanding those business components, right?
Almost like the old thinking. I mean, it's pretty current, but this whole just-in-time inventory system seems to, at a situation like this, is obviously flawed if the system turns on its head. Have you, based on your experience, have you noticed some of the changes, some of the shifts in some of the companies or organizations that you work with? What have they been trying to do? Are they starting to stock up on stuff? Are they building inventory?
They've had to stock up. But they also have to understand what they need to stock up on, because one of the reasons that push was created so much waste, because sometimes you ended up stocking up on items that will stay in storage, right? Or items that will go beyond their expiration date. So companies that have had to now consider in terms of stocking, they have to really think about, okay, we're still using components of pull, in a sense that we can only stock on those items that we also know we're going to be using right away. You know, we otherwise what's going to also happen is if we end up stocking on those wrong items, we might not use them at all, and that might create, you know, other barriers. So they really are trying to understand, you know, what is required for their business, and really have a closer relationship with suppliers to really see down the pipeline. That's what I'm hearing. It's kind of like previously we might have had discussions, but now we really need to understand what's happening like overall, both in terms of policies or regulations, but also in terms of policies related to health, you know, because we've had to have shutdowns, and how that's actually impacting why we can't receive one supply. Because sometimes what happens is really one supply that's having an issue with. You know, the other ones are doing okay, it's just one supply. How can we get that one supply that we're having an issue with, because these ones are okay with, instead of we need everything now and we need to stock up on everything. So making sure that we know what we're stocking up on.
It's in organizations that are actually, we experience, you know, we were working with organizations that are applying lean or started the lean journey. The big difference is that now they can see the reality, they can see the need, and they have the support from frontline staff. It's not just from the management level trying to identify strategies for that, you know, that bottleneck or that problem that they have based on, you know, the new reality. But it's a group of people, it's the culture of the organization making the change all together, everybody together. You know, they're working from the different levels, but they are working, they are providing feedback, they're providing input. So that's why they can survive. Those organizations actually can survive.
Yeah, going back to resilience, which is what the main topic of our conference is about, is having that employee and company culture buy-in is going to be a big driving factor for success. And you know, and anything that can kind of hinder that is something that needs to be tweaked on, corrected, or, you know, re-strategized. Okay, I think we're good here, Erica and Celia. I want to thank you once again for. I'm sure the members have seen my emails go out on the lean courses being provided by Relamco. Just so you know, it is me that's sending them. So if you have any questions, feel free to reply to those emails.
Mm-hmm. And yes, and you know, and thank you for having us. And only that, for everyone, you know, take an opportunity to look at we have quite a few videos up on YouTube that showcase some of the work we've done. We've done in terms of 5S. We've worked with community, First Nation community, being able to, for the health center, be able to actually apply lean in several projects. And you'll be able to see some of the work that we do. And, you know, as Constantine has mentioned, you know, we have several different kind of trainings that I think will suit the different needs that people have, and that are offered, you know, be it as a self-paced component, be it facilitated led, or be it in person. So it's, I think, and in English and Spanish, which is, I think, a good opportunity overall. And, you know, those videos, the meal per hour video, you know, if you haven't had a chance to watch it overall, I said it's a very good case study of what really lean is all about, and the fact that you can apply it to every facet and every kind of industry or every kind of work. And it I think really embodies, you know, in terms of being able to understand your customer and to be able to make those necessary and positive changes.